Hello everyone, and welcome to your last implementation lesson for the Web Design and Development Unit. So, first of all, your starter is normal. I want you to describe the styling of the starter. Now, the starter is the text down here at the bottom left, and I want you to tell me what font colour it's going to be, what alignment it's going to have, and what the body background colour will be. I've given you the HTML file, and I've given you the CSS file. Now, the link here works perfectly well, okay? So I want you to decide, it's all to do with precedence again, what the font colour, the alignment of the words, the starter will be, and the body background colour. So you need to pause here and have a good think about that. Send that as a comment, as usual, on Satchel 1, please. Okay, so we're looking at implementation, and I've said it's our last lesson for the theory part and the practical part. So what I want to do is have a look and just confirm that I have done everything with you. So the first part is the CSS implementation, and it asked you to describe, exemplify and implement internal and external cascading style sheets. So that's the external CSS file, the internal style section in the head, and you were to know about selectors, the classes and IDs. You were to understand the properties that you could change. So for text, you could change the font family or the font size. You could change the font color. You can change the font alignment. You could also change the background color of the entire body, or the background color of maybe an H1 or an ordered list or something like that. And you were to be able to read and explain code that makes use of the above CSS. Now, describe. That means you've got to be able to explain it in an exam question. Exemplify means that you have to come up with examples in an exam question, and implement means that you have to be able to produce the code during your assignment. Okay. Now for CSS, they will always give you some code and you'll be able to adjust your answer from that. However, for HTML, where it says describe, exemplify and implement HTML code, you will have to be able to describe what it does in a question paper. You will have to write out examples of HTML code from memory, and you will also implement HTML code during your assignment. So you need to understand what HTML is overall, about the head and the body, what the title is for, what the headings, the 6 headings, why we've got paragraph, why we use divisions, all about the links and how you would create a link. How you would then anchor that link to maybe a piece of text or an image, how to make an image appear, an audio clip appear, or a video clip appear, and all about lists, ordered lists, unordered lists, and list items. You need to be able to describe and implement the hyperlinks, both internal and external, and very much be able to explain the difference between the two. And you need to know which one uses relative addressing and which one uses absolute addressing. And you have to be able to read and explain code that makes use of that above HTML. And now we're on to our final part, and this is today's lesson. It's quite a small lesson today actually. It's all about implementing JavaScript. Now you notice it says describe and identify JavaScript coding related to mouse events. You do not have to give examples and you do not have to implement it. The mouse events they're talking about are on mouse over and on mouse out. So the question that's likely to come up in the question paper will actually ask you to identify the language that would do something to some elements on your web page, I'll explain that in a minute, and the event that would make it happen. And that's really easy. The language, for 1 mark, JavaScript. The event, you'd maybe have to identify in some code either the term on mouse over or the term on mouse out. And that would be your 2nd mark for the question. It's really, really quite straightforward. But I want to let you guys see it in action. So, what is JavaScript? It's a programming language which is used alongside HTML and CSS to add interactivity to web pages. So HTML is the content of the web page. CSS is the styling and how it's going to look and be positioned. Interactivity means that due to something that the user does with the cursor, the pointer, something will happen on the web page. Now, as part of the National 5 course, you only need to know about 2 of these JavaScript events, on mouse over and on mouse out, and it's really obvious what they do. On mouse over something is going to happen to the web page element when the cursor or pointer moves to hover over it. Okay, now I'm moving my arrow about the screen, and basically if I went on to an element, now web page element could be an H1, it could be an image, it might be an ordered list, could be anything. Okay, on mouse out, something happens to the web page element when the pointer or cursor then moves away from it. Simple as that. So examples of changes that you could make to your elements on your web page. Well, if it's an image, if you move your pointer cursor on top of the image, maybe it gets bigger, or it could get smaller. It might disappear, or it might appear. If it's font, text, I should say, you could change the color of the text when you hover over it, maybe the size of it, change the font family, change its alignment. Okay, and this can all be when your cursor or pointer moves over the element, so the H1 or the image or whatever, or when it moves away. Or it could change when you hover over it and then revert back when you move the cursor or pointer away. So you could use both of the JavaScript events on the same element. So let's look at a wee bit of code. Now here's the code here. Very simple, got the head section, the body section. Title will appear up at the top, JavaScript. And in the body we've got an H1, move over the picture to make it change. We've got an H2, important stuff you must know. And then beginning here with this angle bracket, we've got something to do with an image. Now all of the code in these 3 lines is all to do with that image before we actually close the image tag over here. Okay, so first of all, you can spot the 2 events. There is going to be something happening on mouse over and something happening on mouse out. Those are the JavaScript events. We've got this word this. Now that means this image element. So in other words, inside this image here, all this stuff until we get to the end here is going to be affected by this event here. Okay, so first of all, when we load the page, the image's source, it's going to go away to the resources folder and find a picture called bitmap.png. And that's a picture of over here, talking about some common color bit depths. That's going to make it the size of 200, and that's going to appear. But then if you move your mouse over this particular source, so that image or the space for that image, then it is going to become into the resources folder and find a different image called audio.png. Okay, and if you move your pointer or cursor away from the image, then this image, this source, will now go off to the resources folder and find our original picture of the bitmap.png. Now, it's quite complicated. You will not ever be asked to put this in your assignment or write it out in an exam. You literally have to identify the events. Okay, so if you spot on mouse over, spot on mouse out, write that down your answer, and there's a mark. Okay, but what would be the fun in that if I don't let you have a go at it? So I've got a task sheet for you, and I want you to complete this task sheet. It's task sheet 13, JavaScript tasks. So I'll just show you what that looks like. Task sheet 13. For the following tasks, you'll need to download the Lesson 11 JavaScript tasks folder from Teams. There are 5 HTML files in it. In a folder called HTML, and there are, I think, excuse me, I think 5 images in a resources folder for you to use. So you can open those up and attempt the following tasks, and then you're going to add evidence of the changes that you made in this document. So let's have a look at those. So I have got the files, and I have got what the web pages look like. So the very first question. It says, edit the bbig.html file to add a picture of your own that gets smaller with the on mouse over event and reverts to its original size with the on mouse out event. Okay, so let's look at that. So here we go. Here's my code, and it looks very similar to the example I just showed you. Here's the beginning of the image. Here's the end of the image. So when we first load the page, we're going to see pony.jpg, and it's going to have a height of 200 pixels. But on mouse over, this image's style's height is going to become 400, and then on mouse out, this image's style height is going to go back to 200 pixels. So if I just move my pointer over, my cursor over, move it off, move it on, move it off, move it on. There we go. Now, what you're asked to do, I've actually put it here in the text, now, sorry, in the web page. Now add a picture of your own below. So keep mine there. Make it go smaller with your pointer. Okay, and then revert to its normal size. Okay, so that's what I have said in the Word document here for number 1. And then what I want you to do is put in a screenshot or a snip or a copy and paste of your code to prove that you've done it, all of the code, and then a screenshot with your cursor on top of the image and a screenshot with your cursor moved away. Okay. Now the second one, you're going to edit the dream.html file to add a slogan and an image of your own that changes to a second image with the on mouse over event and then reverts back to the original. So I'll just quickly show you that one. We move on to Dream Big and Dream Big. We've now got, we start off with pony.jpg, on mouse over, oh dear, I'm giving it away. There we go. So little pony dreaming big becomes a unicorn. So now you've got to make your own changing image and slogan. So I've got Dream Big, Little Pony, Dream Big. You've got to come up with your own slogan. Okay. Now the text one is pretty cool. Here's the text one here. I don't want to be red. I'm away. I'm going to be big. Look at me change. And here's what I want you to do with it. I've actually written it here on the actual web page itself. Please make me be Comic Sans MS. Write aligned, huge yellow writing on a fluorescent pink background when you pass over me. Go on. You know you want to. So that's not happening just now, and I want you to change the code to make that happen. The next task is actually also editing the text file so that the first 3 headings only revert back to their normal colour or position or size with you adding in an on mouse out event. Okay. One of the files that's provided for you, you won't use, is actually just for illustration purposes, the one that I used earlier in the PowerPoint. Question 5, edit the revision.html file to add 2 more questions. Oh goodness, what's she on about? Let's have a quick look. Revision, very, very complicated code. Look, it goes on and on and on and on. Now, it says, what is the language used to add interactivity to web pages called? And when I hover over the answer, yay, it's JavaScript. And I'm suggesting that you try, only if you want, to try and add 2 more questions of your own to test others in the class on web design and development. Now, I have made it very, very clear, I hope, that this is extremely tricky. I am deliberately not explaining how to do it because this is higher level material. Give it a go and do not worry if you can't do it, please, because we want to leave some things to teach you next year. So don't panic about this. If you think, arg, don't even touch it. Okay, if you think, nope, I'm smart enough for this, give it a go. Okay, no judgment if you manage it or not. So please, please don't worry. Okay, so just to finish off, back to a PowerPoint, that's the task sheet I'm asking you to do. Lots of screenshots for me and clips of code to prove that you've managed to do it. And in summary, send your answer to the starter. If you remember, that was to try and figure out what the starter would look like. As a comment to Satchel 1. And do that task sheet 13 for me, JavaScript tasks. And that's it, guys. That's all I've got for you this week. In the middle of the week, I'll come in with the final lesson, the last theory lesson for web design and development, and we're going to look at testing and evaluation. Okay? Take care, guys. Bye.